Frederico believes in the power of ideas and how they can still change the world. He's been working in creative advertising and communications for the past 20 years and has worked in both Portugal and the UK for different global markets. He's now the executive creative director at Interview Agency in London and Athens. Frederico has won more than 40 international awards. Hi, welcome to Social Friendly Insights. It is really great to have you here, and I hope you're keeping safe.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
I've read something about what you're doing, so I would like you to introduce your agency and talk about what you do a little bit.
Of course. My name is Frederico. I am the executive creative director at Interweave Agency. We have offices both in London and in Athens, where the agency is originally from. We are at our very core a digital marketing agency, but with a twist. I like to say that it's with a twist. Why do I say it's with a twist? Because we like to think, and this has been our struggle and our efforts and our passion over the past 7 years to address our clients' sectors. They could be tourism, or they could be education, or they can be food and drinks. We address these sectors as a whole. Okay, we address them as a unit, as an entire industry, and we try to effectively drive change and help improve that whole sector by helping our own clients to drive forward, to bring forward some innovation, some best practices into their own industries, and connecting the dots in between big players, small players, maybe some government players and other entities. So more than just a comms agency, we like to think that we are a partner that helps drive change, whether if it's creating a product, whether if it's creating a new service. That's our positioning, because at our very core, in our heart, we really truly care by our industries.
That is absolutely amazing, and I totally agree that to bring about the bigger change, we need to connect the dots and understand the gaps, and not just understand digital or comms as a space in isolation. So,
Exactly.
moving on with our discussion, I want to understand from you, since you're right there in the center of it, that how has this pandemic changed or brought about a change in the entire digital landscape? Because as soon as the pandemic struck and everything was closed, all eyes suddenly turned towards digital.
We know that digital is a force for the best contact with people in a two-way street, right? More than the traditional communication, traditional advertising that tends to be very one directional. We know that digital and social media has the power. It was natural, and I mean, to be honest, obvious that the shift would happen, given the fact that people would have a bit more availability and a bit more of mind space to not only seek for answers, ask the right questions, but also be be in the moment in a way that would allow them to get brand and product communications in a way that would really affect them. Let's have in mind that this pandemic is a situation that is stressful, and it puts people in an awareness state, sometimes anxious, sometimes stressful, which is something that we have to have in mind, of course, as brand communicators. And but this also allows us to understand that they are in a receiving mode, they are in an absorbing mode, right? And again, this two-way street communication of digital and social media allows us to have a very honest and frank and open conversation and communication towards them with any of our products or services. So we knew this from the get-go, and this everything else came afterwards, like the fact that we know now that the budgets are constrained. The budgets for all things communication wise are smaller. We know that we need to be very resourceful with the assets that we have at our availability, in our disposal. So sometimes we need to repurpose them. We need to revisit what we've done. We need to reuse what was created in the past few months, few years, to repackage it in a way that it's meaningful and that it's more than anything helpful for people. The brands that I think did the best work were the ones that really reached out and extended a helping hand to people in this day and age. So this resourcefulness and being very clever with the reduced budgets was the way to go, and that's what we've seen over the past 3 months by most agencies and clients.
Interesting, interesting. And since you talk about the resource constraints and the reduced budgets, I want to understand that at the starting of this year, WARC, it said that the entire ad spend would grow by 6%. And in fact, the ad spend in digital space would become about $656 billion. And it was predicted that the entire internet format will account to 50% of the ad spending as a whole.
Uh-huh.
Now, obviously resources are less, as you say, but the hope that people can or connect with their customers is again diverting towards the digital landscape. It's a whole concept of irony that is sort of emerging, where people and brands, they want to reach out and spend in digital space, but the resources are limited. So what do you think that businesses should do right now?
The business right now, they need to be very more than ever, they need to be very human centric. Okay, and they need to be, and I know that this might sound obvious, but being human centric should always be at the very core of our businesses. But now more than ever, because again, like I said, we're going through a period in our civilization globally that there's a fundamental shift coming. Right, we've understood that our ways of working can be totally different, and the working from home, which most industries, most companies, they weren't even realizing that it was a possibility. Now it became the reality, right? So, and time availability and what people are doing to cope, it fundamentally changes everything, right? And one of the things, one of the industries, one of the sectors that I think will most likely benefit from this is potentially the entertainment industry. When I say entertainment, I'm mostly talking about how people will choose to spend their free time, their downtime, their family time when they're constrained about those. So, and that's why we've seen a massive spike, of course, of the utilization of services such as Netflix and others, because that's where we know that people are shifting their attention to. It's what they have at their disposal. Not only now they are totally different, but they will continue to grow towards the digital spend, because right now we know that everybody has their phone more even before in their hands, to be in contact with their loved ones, to work, to have a bit of downtime, and to just escape, or plan their next whatever gathering with their friends or with their families. So it's natural that now more than ever, um, the digital spend will increase, because all the services, for instance, like e-commerce, that are coming from it, it's benefiting, right? Like I said in the beginning, it's a fundamental shift of our way of living, right? Curiously enough, I think that especially on TV, we're also going to see a little spike on the ad spend and on the investment. Again, exactly because people have a bit more of entertainment time available, right? Because they're not spending time on their commute going to work, because suddenly they have maybe 1 hour or 2 hours extra of their day, because they don't have to, move to go to work. So this means that probably countries and industries in which TV still plays a big role, we're going to see a spike potentially, because people are also seeking for news. They're seeking for entertainment, like I said. And in my particular case, which is more on the digital side, what I think is, like I said, the way to go is the human centric approach, knowing what people are doing, knowing what people are searching for, and then create the services and the goodwill that will allow them to have a better life.
Agreed. So I totally agree with you because when I also give trainings for social media or digital, what I tell people it's more than just algorithms. So you have to look beyond the algorithms. You have to look beyond strategy and understand it's more to do with behavioral sciences. Like you say that the human is in the center of it. We have to understand what the audience behavior is, how it's changing, how their consumption patterns are changing. So discussing and taking that point forward, I want to understand that what are some audience behavior changes that have come up during this pandemic, which you think is going to be there for a long haul? And what are some consumer attitudes, audience attributes that we thought were to be true, but now it has just become redundant and we should sort of get over that?
It's a great question. I think, first and foremost, I think there are things that we will not be seeing going away. One of them is this remote working, right? It came and it became a staple of our way of living, right? It came through in a way that fundamentally changed even our personalities and changed the way we interact with our colleagues, changed the way we are productive, and changed the way we choose and plan our day to day in the best ways to work. I found out myself, for instance, that productivity wise, when you take away all of the commuting and the meetings that I have on a day to day basis, or bumping into my colleague, which I miss dearly on my coffee break, when all that is out of the equation, I'm actually extremely productive during my night periods. Okay, and I leave the rest of the day to think, to get inspired, to help my teams, to mentor them when needed, to research, and the actual making is in the evening. Now because I'm within my family household and I'm with my girlfriend and we are together. So the time that was sacred for me, that was the end of the days to spend with family time and friends, suddenly now everything got a little dispersed, everything got a little blurred throughout the day, which actually brings a lot of balance to my life, and I reckon for a lot of people's lives. And I don't think that is going to go away, apart from those businesses in which people have to be presentially in a place. But everything else, it's a fundamental change on our and in that sense, I think that things that came to stay for good, they were on the rise, and now they are for good for sure. Even for maybe smaller markets in smaller countries that were never really operated in that way, e-commerce is really also a big shift. Okay, either from the usual suspects like Amazon and Lazada in Asia, um, but also the supermarket brands in each country, but also the direct to consumer type of business from many brands and many corporations, right? I think that is going to be a huge boom when it comes to direct to consumer, in which companies and brands will realize that they will have um, a lot of benefits when it comes to learning about their target audiences, a lot of benefits when it comes, and a lot of learnings when it comes to the relationship in the CRM aspect of the business with the direct to consumer, right? And because they're probably going to have a bit more, they're going to remove a middleman, and they're going to have a bit more profit, they're going to be able to control the whole distribution process, and it's actually going to open up, you know the opportunity for better investments in new products, in new services. This whole together is connected in a wonderful way, which I think from a creative standpoint opens up opportunities and opens up our minds to ways of working, ways of thinking, ways of collaborating and co-working and co-creation in ways that we never really thought before.
Interesting, but that makes me think of another challenge that digital space has had for quite some time. is that brands, when they want to move on to digital space or when they are already there, the biggest challenge is that the engagement rate has always been very low. I mean, to put it in more simpler terms, whatever you're putting online, the shelf life it gets is pretty low. It's more than almost about 0.09% to 2% across platforms.
Yeah.
That has always been an issue. It has been a challenge. Now, with more people, more audiences online, it means more web chatter, more web clutter. So, do you think that the online platforms also need to do some kind of revamping their algorithms, do some kind of change, bring about a change in how they are working, probably be more robust, and maybe they need to sort of think about more niche community building through online platforms. What are your thoughts on that?
So let's put again the human centric lens into all of this. So to answer your first part of the question is the platforms, and I'm going to talk about the usual suspects again. I'll talk about Facebook, Google, Twitter, Instagram. Um, they are very clear, and they've been so for the past maybe 4 or 5 years, that they became a, a, they became a reach platform, all of them, right? So it's a bit of a mistake to still look at them in an organic way as engagement platforms, right? So we know that when the algorithm came in around 2013, 14, in which everything moved into a paid media space, we need to understand that right now, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, they are mostly eyeballs count, right? They are a reach platform. And yes, of course, if you have some sort of engagement, like I said before, if there's some way of two-way conversational aspect to the ideas and the campaigns that are run, marvelous. But at the very core, they are to reach people, right? And I think that most clients in most agencies haven't realized that yet. And they're still counting the number of likes, and they're still counting the number of comments, and they're still counting the number of shares, which they're not there anymore. This comes directly from Facebook and Instagram and Google themselves, right? Of course, they want to attract people, and of course, they want people to stay in their platforms. But first and foremost, that's what they're there for. Okay. Now, this is what I think most agencies and brands they need to realize, that this is what they're good for. They're good for reach. They're good to impact people with strong messages, with human-centric messages. Again, because that's how people operate. That's how they are swiping through their mobile phones, right? We know that, and we know that where they are. We know how to talk to them where they are in that context. The second part of your question is how to communicate, how to have better engagement, if possible, if we have addressed niches. Completely right. I completely agree that the way forward is to address people's passions and people's passion points. And everybody's different. Everybody has something that ticks for them. Okay. And when you start looking at the circles of influence that one person has around them, you might reach out to their close friends, maybe 5 6 people in their extended family group, maybe up to 20 30 people, and then the other ones up to 500. It starts Everybody starts almost becoming their micro influencers, right? So it's very interesting when you say it like that, the niche marketing, because it is proven that on the long haul, on the long term, addressing people's passions, addressing what ticks for them, it becomes much more human, much more relevant, much more impactful, in a way that we know that will drive effectively some love for the brand, and effectively then some action, which is buying a product, buying a service, buying a brand. And you can build from there, right? Because humans, we act as a whole, we act in society, we act as groups. And if you address a group of 100 people that are very passionate about something, our herd's community sense means that potentially that becomes a trend, potentially that becomes a bigger group, and it becomes a bigger business opportunity. It becomes a bigger creative opportunity. And you can start small. You can start with a very small group of loyal people that are passionate about, and I'm going to be silly now, that are passionate about uh, superheroes that saves animals. Just a small example. But okay, maybe that's a niche, and you can explore it. You should explore it. Everybody should really tap into the opportunities that no one else is doing right now. I always say, from a creative standpoint, I always say that if you want to stand out, it's our number one task as creatives to do something different to stand out.
Totally, absolutely. That was a lovely answer. I'm sure who all our audiences who are listening to it would be really, really excited to hear such
Thank you.
insights. But bringing our questions, our queries down to a more geographical issue, I would want to ask you an India geographic based issue or question. That is that here there are definitely brands who are engaged in digital, who are spending in digital, but then there are definitely sectors who are aware of it, who know about digital spending, digital landscape, social media, but they are not, as of now, they weren't very keen to put it in a
Mhm.
certain way. They have their own apprehensions. Sectors like energy, some public sectors development to a certain extent, but then around the world the whole digital investment, time wise, money wise, has grown exponentially. So now there are these sectors here in India. Now they are sort of waking up and thinking that okay, now is the time that maybe even we should be doing something. So
Mhm.
what do you want to suggest such businesses or such industries or sectors who are sort of now contemplating that they should be getting online? Uh, what do you want to suggest them? Some tips? What do you want to say?
Of course, India is a huge country with a massive number of population, very different in traditions, in cultures, in religions. I have some experience with the Indian market because I was working until recently at Unilever in one of our biggest brands. With Lifebuoy, I had contact with many realities in many parts of India, and we understood that there isn't definitely a one size fits all type of solution. In that sense, my number one recommendation for any business or company or service in India that is trying to have some breakthrough, to have some early success with the online in the digital sphere, is to listen to people, is to listen to what is being said and done. People's livelihoods depend a lot of the times on small introductions in innovation, small little changes that suddenly, to the rest of the world, to Europe, to the US, might seem like very simple and basic stuff, but effectively it is transformational at the very core in some regions, in some parts of the country. So I, this the, in Europe we would call it social listening, right? Right, and understand what people are talking about and understanding what people are searching. But if you are in a country that is not yet very digital social savvy, you still need to understand people's livelihoods, people's traditions, people's cultures, people's day to days, and with that understand, what time do they wake up, what time do they go to bed, what time do they have with their friends, with their families, what time is their shopping habits, right? So I'm not saying that India is behind in some of those things. What I'm saying is that there's some groundwork that always needs to be done. And if that groundwork hasn't been done yet, because services have been behind a little bit, that is the number one thing, is to to research, to listen, to study exactly what people are doing and saying, where are they doing it, saying it, to whom are they doing it, saying it, and be really the connective tissue that will bring all those things together, right? Whether if it's through a new product, whether if it's through a new service, whether if it's to helping them out their day to day, right? I think that is the number one recommendation, is that getting all the data available from any party possible, and to have your heart on your sleeve. When I say this, I mean by truly caring to effectively bring some change and effectively bring some impact to people's lives. Okay. And many times in any part of the world, that means sacrificing maybe early profits. That means probably sacrificing results that would put you in a very good light PR wise in your industry, in your country. If you put yourself out there, if you have a true, genuinely caring attitude towards your country, towards your community, you will get that reward tenfold in the years to come. Okay, so that research and being there and suggesting new ways of people's livelihoods and helping their in their businesses, in their families, in and bringing them some good vibes, that I think is the right way to go. Okay, and most importantly, if you don't have those tools to research and to listen, invent them. Invent those tools. I said before, to do something different, it's the right way to create creative impact, right? Just because you will stand out. And I always say as well, create what's not there. Invent what you need to prove your point, to help people. And I really do think that companies and brands that have that capacity and have that availability, they can even create those research methods to then, come up with their own solutions, combine them with third party data, and be really an authority that will make people say, these guys know their thing.
No, and I absolutely agree with everything that you're saying. It's very important to do all of these things, and I believe that it's now time that all of us sort of realize that digital is has come in the center of all communication that's happening around the world, and the barriers and borders are sort of dissolving with digital landscapes growing every single day. So that brings us to the end of our discussion, and I want to ask you that if we have to imagine the entire digital landscape, it's a very broad question, I know, but if we have to imagine a landscape that is digital, say in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years, how do you think it's going to look like?
I think there's going to be a massive, even more massive, if we can say that, shift into people's livelihoods. What do I mean by this? I think there will be more jobs, more services, more companies, more brands that will come up with new ways of working, new products, and new services that are only online, full online, not even a physical element to it. Um, I have a small example from my home country, Portugal. I mean, during this pandemic time, we saw on average 90 online business a day starting up, like small companies having their own entrepreneurial startup vibe. 90 a day during 90 days. So it's an impressive number, right? Of people, wanting to become their own entrepreneurs, their own startups, their own business owners, and come up with solutions and products and brands that will, effectively bring something to the table. Okay. So I do think that in the next 5 years, we will continue to see a rise of this trend, of people trying new things online, combining services, combining products for them to create their own spin to it. We just talked about niche. I think that will continue on the rise. I think that the Internet of Things that we've been talking about for the past 4 or 5 years will continue to rise. Many products in your household, in all of our households, will continue to be connected. Will continue to serve us with the data that will ultimately, hopefully, improve our lives, from our TVs to our fridges to our ovens and our cabinets. I think we will continue to see a rise in these type of services, a rise in this type of products. And this will fundamentally also open up the opportunity for us to rethink our lifestyles, right? And rethink the way we think about our priorities. Okay. And we've listened a lot about, over the past few years, about artificial intelligence. We've listened a lot about augmented reality. I think there's something in the middle which I like to call augmented intelligence. There's something there that will be a reality within the next 5 years. All of the research and development that we see in the world, in not only in biology and health and medicine, but also in other areas, such as all things tech related. I think there will be at some point a merge that will help us have better lives, help us enjoy our lives better. And I think that in the future, in the next 5 years, we will also be hopefully more healthier. And I think that we will have a better understanding of who we are as a community, as a society. We're seeing right now, unfortunately, a lot of things happening in our world, and the fact that people are connected and you are seeing in real time what's happening on the other side of the world will influence your psyche, your conscious, in a way that I think, hopefully, fingers crossed, will fundamentally also shift our perception of what it is to be human.
Absolutely. I think that despite whatever everyone says, digital does bring us together. Despite all the reports that say that it is sort of trying to take us away from actually having relations and feeling that human interaction in front of us, it does bring us together. It does dissolve the borders around the world. It does
Mm.
create that sense of global community, the world as one. Have rightly pointed out, it looks bright. The future of digital looks really bright, really hopeful. And Frederico, I must say, we're really thankful to you for taking our time to do this. It's been a total pleasure.
No, thank you for the time. Thank you for the invite. It was a pleasure talking to you, and with social friendly. It's one of those things that, again, digital allows is for us to be connected from the other side of the world almost, and talk about what we love, which is creativity and digital and social.
So it's been a total pleasure. Thank you for being on Social Friendly Insights.